Hey, see you in church. Um, I started this last week and I'm going to try to continue it. When I was younger, the older people would get around and they would sit down and they would tell stories and about everybody that used to sit around there. They're all gone. They're in heaven, hopefully, God willing. And so I consider them my stories, even though they're their stories. And I decided I would go ahead and tell the stories during this. I don't know how many I have. I really haven't thought about it. I just remember that some of the stories sounded like they interwebbed, even though they were from different locations in the world. Anyway, so oh, don't forget to subscribe to my channel, put the little hand up and say hi, um, leave a message. Let me know if you've heard these stories before and where do you think these areas are from? Because the different areas, the people that we sat with, they were from all over America that I could remember. Like my neighbor, that told us a lot of her stories. She lived, I was guessing, New Mexico or maybe Texas or maybe even Mexico for a while. I'm not too sure. Or her stories are from Mexico. And then we had another lady who I'm sure she was from Brazil. And we had a neighbor that had this weird thing, and it was from Mexico. The part where that had a little peninsula that stuck out of America. That's where the weird thing is. I don't know if maybe I should tell that story. I'm not too sure. At that time, her children were my best friends. So I think I'll tell that one. When I was really, really younger, I guess I was about 11 maybe. I probably wasn't even that old yet. But anyway, it doesn't really matter how old I was. But everybody would get together and they would sit and talk. And she thought it was interesting to scare people or embarrass them and stuff like that. So she told to her son to go and get this thing from her room. He knew what it was. I hadn't seen it, none of us had. And she started telling us. I went home, and while I was visiting, something scary happened, and everybody was like, oh, pasted to, give her the attention that she wanted. She goes, well, I went home. She goes, it was a long drive, and I decided to have a drink, a glass of wine. She goes, so I was sitting by the water with my feet touching the water, keeping cooling off my feet, she said, and drinking my wine. And she goes, something grabbed onto my leg and wouldn't let go. I don't know. I felt two little hands grabbing and grabbing and grabbing. and I yanked my foot up, and but it didn't let go, and I hit my heel over and over on the ground. I was screaming and screaming and screaming, and I didn't know what to do. So I reached down and I grabbed it, and this is what it was. And she stuck it in front of all our faces, and everybody, there were a few men there too, they screamed, everybody did. And it was shocking. And she actually had one of them. It was like petrified. You could still feel it's sort of like a snake like or no, not well, not that rough, snake like feel, or more like maybe fish, I'm not too sure. But it had legs, it had arms, it had a head and a body, and you could see that it was all one piece. There was not like how you see people put things together and you have the little seams or anything. No, it was what it was. And it was almost like a lizard, but at the same time it wasn't. And what it actually looked like, I don't know. Nowadays, people don't see that movie anymore, but it was called The Creature of the Black Lagoon. And it looked a lot like that. And we were all like so shocked and scared. And we're like, is that real? She goes, yeah, it is here. And she handed it around. Everybody touched it. And it was stiff. And its arms were reaching out like this, out. And it was just weird. And we couldn't say, well, that's not true, because she had it right there. And we were like all shocked. It was, our eyes were like, and it was just so weird. It didn't stink, but it had a weird texture to its skin. It scared the living daylights out of us. Um, we thought she was going to go on, but no, she just pulled that out from there. Her son had handed it to her, and it scared us tremendously. It was too funny. I was laughing, and everybody had to laugh, and it was just amazing. I had never seen that. I've never heard anyone ever talk about that or anything. Um, but she had that, and it was interesting. It was different, and she had gone home for what reason I don't know, because her mother lived here. She lived about, I guess, 2 miles away from us, and we walked over there, and they had chickens and everything, but never saw that. So I don't know why they went to Mexico. Maybe there was a family get together or something, but I don't remember my friends um, being without their mother or anything. Maybe they flew down and flew back. I don't know, because I don't remember during that time them not playing with us. So maybe she left the kids, I don't know, and went, her and her grown up family, and left the kids there. I don't know, but it was just so exciting, and the story, I thought, well, I was expecting, some story from the olden days or something, but for her to come out with the actual item, we all were shocked. And I had heard about that story before, not the grabbing her leg or anything. I had heard about the lake where she lived, and there was these weird creatures, but she didn't tell that version of the story about the weird creatures that she had seen stick their head up. She had um scared her all her childhood, that there was something in that water other than the fish they caught to eat and all that. And she moved down over here. The moment she got old enough to move away, she did, because that lake scared her. So then I guess someone must have caught one, and by the time she went to visit, there it was, and she put it in her luggage, and she flew back or drove their car back or whatever. But there it was. It was just so surprising. And it was proof that the story I had heard once before was real. And I'm not too sure if they went and gave it to somebody to do studies on or anything, because I remember she knew people like that. And she may have done that. I'm not too sure. That might have been the reason she brought it. But before she gave it to them, she told us the story about her putting her feet in the water and something touching her. Because I had heard that once before when she was a little girl. She was sitting, there was a dock, and then you would go down some steps and there was another dock, and then you would go down and there was where the boats hooked on, was on the third dock. And she would go sit down on the third dock and she would put her feet in the water because it was so hot, she told us. And one day she felt these little hands touch her, and she freaked out. She thought it was her brother playing games, but her brother was on the top. That was her story. Her brother was up there, and she had seen little heads in the water during the night. And you know how where they always show on TV where they put your light there and you take it away and then you put it back and nothing's there? Well, that's what she said she always did. She knew there was something there. And so there she was. She had it. It was proof that there really was something. It was amazing. We were all surprised and everything, and it was um, a story that we shouldn't have been able to. She would tell, and we would never, we'd go, oh yeah. No, we got to actually see the real thing, that the thing that had tormented her all her childhood and grown uphood, to be honest, the way she talked about it. And now there it is, a real one. Petrified a little bit, but it was still real. And I was like, amazed. And I had asked my mom, have you ever seen that before? She goes, I've heard the stories, but I've never seen one. I've heard descriptions, and this fits it, but I've never seen one. And I was like amazed. But anyway, maybe you've heard of those stories too. Let me know if you have heard of those stories. The thing is, this for me was I actually got to touch it. I got to hold it in my hands, and it was just so strange and weird, but amazing. But let me know what you think about that. This one you can't say, well, it's not true, because it actually was real. I mean, well, you don't have to believe me. That's one thing you can say. Oh, I don't believe that. But it was real. I was amazed. I have other stories, and I'll tell you another one another day. But anyway, see you in church.